Hi everyone, Ashley here and welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. Today I'm sharing how to make this fun slimline farm themed card using a lot of Lawn Fawn supplies, including their stamp set Hey There, which is an older stamp set of theirs, but it is new to me. It's actually a gift that I got over the holidays from my husband, so I was very excited to use it for the first time, and I've seen lots of great inspiration using this set, so it was fun to get my hands on it and give it a go as well. So to start off, I've cut off a few pieces with some Lawn Fawn dies. So I cut a slimline rectangle, which I'm blending onto here with a cloud stencil and some tumbled glass Distress Oxide ink to create a nice sky pattern near the top. I also went ahead and cut out a bunch of other pieces with the same rectangle die, but then I cut them into smaller pieces using some Hillside dies with some stitch edges, which is just a nice way to give it a finish. So I finished with the sky blending, and then I wanted to blend some grass onto each of these hillsides. And how I'm doing that is by using sort of a striped effect with masking tape. I got this idea to make this striped effect, which looks like sort of mowed grass, I guess, from a card that I saw on Instagram from Tammy Stark or Paper Pretty Boutique. And I will link her Instagram account down in the video description below so you can go there and see the original inspiration for this. She did this stripy background grass using the same stamp set, and I wanted to sort of try it out for myself as well. I'm not quite sure how she did it, if she did it this way as well, but this is just the way that I figured out how to do it, and I hope that this is helpful. So for each piece, I'm just doing the same thing where I'm masking off lines using just a simple roll of masking tape. So I'm just sort of putting the masking tape down and then measuring out what is approximately the same width of that masking tape, skipping over it, and then putting the masking tape down again to create these stripes. Then I'm just inking in between the masking tape to create those light green lines. Then when those are done on each piece, I'm coming back and masking off what I had already inked and then inking in between them with another sort of shade of green. And I'm just making sure to mask off like both sides of the inked grass if I had already inked. So here I'm inking sort of in between two already inked stripes. So I'm just masking off both sides before I ink so that I'm not getting the dark green ink onto the spot where I'd already inked the light green. The two particular colors that I'm using for this are Lucky Clover as the darker green and Mowed Grass, I believe, or Mowed Lawn. I forget what the color is called, but I'll have it in the description box below as the lighter green. And by the way, you can always see any supplies that I'm using in any of my cards. I'll always list them down in the description below the video if you're curious. So the one important thing to note here is that, or I guess a couple important things to note here are that, number one, because these are going to be layered on top of each other, I did make sure to sort of offset where I'm doing these stripes. So if I did a dark green stripe on the very left hand of the upper panel, I made sure to sort of do a lighter green stripe on the left hand side of the lower panel. Just so that it doesn't look like the stripes are going all the way down the card. They're kind of going to be offset from each other as the hillsides sort of interact and meet. The second thing is that as you're doing this sort of second layer of inking, so you've already inked your first color and now you're onto the second color, and you're placing your masking paper over top of the first color, just make sure to leave a little bit of space. And that's just so that you don't end up getting sort of a white negative space left in between. It's okay if the second color overlaps the first color a little bit. That's better than leaving some white space in between them. So you can have the colors overlap slightly and that will help you. Okay, so now that all of that inking is done, it's time to get onto the stamping. So I took a whole bunch of images from the Hey There stamp set and I'm stamping them out onto white cardstock with a Copic friendly black ink, and I'm using My Favorite Things Extreme Black ink, which is my current favorite black ink for Copic coloring. So I stamped out a bunch of the images. I stamped them out twice using my Mini Misty to get a nice solid black line. And I stamped out a few of the images a few times. So I stamped out 4 of the picket fences because I knew that I was going to be using multiples of those on my cards. I also stamped out a bunch of the little birds and a couple of eggs as well, just to have them around my card. So now I'm getting into the coloring, and if you don't want to watch all the coloring, then please feel free to skip ahead to the video because I will show how the rest of the card comes together after. But if you do want to watch the coloring, definitely feel free to stick around. I'm using my Copic markers to color these images, and I decided for this card that I wanted to try out giving them a bit of a lighter touch. And what I mean by that is sort of leaving more white space on the images than I normally would, just to kind of have them be sort of more pale and lighter in color. So you'll see that kind of as I continue to color. For the cow, I just colored his or her little spots in a darker gray, and then the part that was supposed to be white, I just kind of outlined in some very, very light gray, just to give a little bit of shadow. And for the nose of the cow, I just added a little strip of pink, leaving the bottom white where the highlight would be. For the fences, I just went around with a very, very light sort of brownish tan color. I think that was E50. And for the chicks, I'm just adding a little bit of orange to their beaks and feet and little poofs of hair, I guess. And then some very light yellow to their bodies. And again, I'm just sort of adding a touch of color and leaving a lot of white as sort of the highlighted section. And in cases like this, I do like to kind of come in with my 0 Copic marker, which is the colorless blender. And I find that when you kind of go around with the colorless blender, it just helps to soften the edges of any lines that you've drawn. So if I did kind of outline the chicks in a very light yellow, and then I come in with the colorless blender, it sort of just softens the edges of those yellow lines that I had placed down. It doesn't soften them too much, but it just softens them a little. In some cases where my stamping wasn't perfect, I did come in with a Copic multi-liner, which is just that light black marker that you see sometimes coming in on the video, and kind of just go over the lines. And I like using a Copic multi-liner for this because it's a beautiful solid black marker, which really matches Copic friendly black ink that is used for stamping very, very well, and it plays nicely with Copic markers. So if you use a Copic multi-liner to sort of reinforce the lines on your stamped images, it won't bleed when you then come back in with Copic marker to color. So you can be sure that it's not going to bleed and it's not going to sort of ruin your images. So I do like to use that to sort of just touch up little images that maybe didn't stamp perfectly the first time, and it blends in completely seamlessly, which is really nice. So I've gone ahead and colored the pig and the goat, and again, like I mentioned, I just sort of did some very simple outlining in color. And for the pig, I used a light pink, and for the goat, I used a warm gray, and just sort of added some touches of color to the outside and just left the insides of their faces and their bodies white, just to act as the highlighted zone, to just make them appear very pale in color. Doing a similar thing with the horse here, I'm using very light browns and leaving a big chunk of the body just white to have a big zone of highlighting. For the eggs are super easy to color. All it takes is a little line of warm gray in the shadow and they're done. And then finally onto the barn, I'm just using some light reds and pinks to add in some color here. And for the door and the roof, I'll just add a very light yellowish brown. I believe E50 is used here again. And some very light yellow for the straw as well, and then that barn will be done too. So that is all of those images colored, and off camera I will go ahead and cut them out so that you don't have to watch me cutting them. And then I'm just sort of laying them all onto the card in the configuration that I thought looked nice, but I haven't adhered anything yet. I usually do this where I lay everything out just to get an idea of where I want things to be before I sort of go ahead and stick them down. I also cut out the word hay out of some letter dies from Lawn Fawn. That's Finley's ABC dies, so just H-A-Y, and then I cut them out of yellow cardstock to match the background, which I cut out of a scalloped piece of cardstock, using a scalloped die, I should say. This is a new die from Lawn Fawn, which is a slimlined scalloped die, which adds a really fun scalloped border to slimline cards, which I love, and this is my first time using that as well. I stamped out the word there right under where I wanted the word hay to be, so the whole sentiment will stay hey there. And you may have noticed as I was talking, I also stamped out the sentiment you are the best, you being E-U-E as a pun, onto a little white banner, which will be the second part of the sentiment, and that will kind of go near the bottom of the card. So it will say hey there, you are the best. And I just stamped that in with some yellow ink to kind of match the yellow accents of the border and the word hay. So everything is now just being kind of assembled and stuck together. I did cut out a white slimline card base, which I stuck that yellow scalloped border onto, and then the cloud piece right onto that, and then of course all of the grass pieces on as well. So it kind of builds up. The bottom of the card is a few pieces of cardstock thick, so it's quite thick, but I like that because it kind of adds to the dimension of the hillsides, sort of building out towards you in a way. From there I can just sort of go ahead and adhere all of the rest of the images onto the card. I used liquid glue for, I think, all of them in this case. And I kind of skipped ahead in the video here, so you don't have to watch me glue every single image, but they are mostly glued down now, and I'm just finishing off by deciding where I want to glue that sentiment banner, as well as the little chicks just sitting on the fence, which I thought was really cute. Once those are done, I am going to come in with a few little accent pieces which I stamped and cut out off camera. I realized I just wanted a few little extra mini things around the card. These little tiny images also come in the stamp set. It's a little heart and a little flower. And I just stamped and cut out a few of each, and I'm just kind of scattering them around to add just a little bit of extra detail to the card. And for each one, I'm just sticking them down with a little dab of liquid glue right onto the front of the card. I did this actually in place of using gemstones or sequins. In this case, I just thought these cute little tiny stamped images were going to fit the card a little bit more nicely, so that's why I just used these. And that is it. That is the card for today. So it's a pretty simple card in concept. It's just, a background with a bunch of stamped images on top, but I really love how bright and colorful and fun it turned out with all those adorable little farm images in their sort of grassy hillside background. So thank you so much for watching today. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, please feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel to see more videos. If you do enjoy my cards, definitely head over to my Instagram account, which is linked down in the description box below the video, where I post even more cards than I do here on YouTube. So thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!